I'm here at my desk. I've got my sketchbook. I've got a project I'm working on. Got my coffee. Let's just be unicorns today, guys. Um, let's talk about the artist home residency that I am working on next. And I've decided to mix it with a couple of different projects. One of them is a project with Anne Livingston. She is another YouTuber and a professional artist. She proposed a series of art, work in a series. So I thought, you know what? I'm ready to do that. I just came out of this 30-day project where I stitched all the faces. Let's jump on board. It's great to have some more accountability and more artists to talk with. So her proposal, she's proposing about 10 pieces finished. It can be more or less depending on your art practice. You just have to come up with a theme. So I came up with this theme, Ready to Nest, and I'll explain that in a moment. But what I wanted to do, because I have a lot of other things going on, I wanted to kind of combine things. I have 3 other projects going on. So for Surface Design Association, I'll be talking about, or I'll be giving a series of talks about artist residency at home. So I wanted to incorporate those ideas here. And I also wanted to incorporate 2 of the meetups that I am doing with Surface Design Association. One of those meetups involves, I'm sorry, I can't speak today. It's another one of those days where I'm really got a lot on my mind. So I'm speaking really fast and I'm tripping over my own words. So anyway, one of the meetups involves adding 3-dimensionality to your art. So primarily, a lot of times when you're doing embroidery or painting, you're working 2-dimensional. And there are some artists, textile artists, who have taken their textile art to a 3-dimensional level. So I will show the resources and the website for that particular aspect of this project momentarily. The other meetup involves using stitching with paper and fabric together, combining them. So I figured that these concepts would be really good to all work in together. So I will be doing this idea of ready to nest. And that concept centers around a feeling that I have right now. In 2025, it will mark 20 years since I have moved outside of the United States. And since that time, we've always rented and we've moved from place to place. We've been in 2 different countries, but being renters, sometimes the rent would go up and we would move around a lot. And sometimes that would be every 2 years or so. The place we're in now is the longest we have ever lived in as a couple, my partner and I. And we're talking about what is our next steps when he retires, where we're going to settle down. And I'm at that point where I am ready to nest in my own home, hoping that we can own something again. We don't know if that's going to be a reality or not, given the current housing market, but that's another topic for another day. But anyway, I'm just kind of ready to nest and have my own permanent, or at least more permanent feeling space. And I've kind of gone back to this concept of when I was a child. When I started painting, I started with acrylic paint by numbers. And I did a lot of painting and crafting at this desk in a window in my room. And outside of it was a bird feeder. And I'd really like to have my own home with a bird feeder and with a little garden space. It doesn't need to be large, and to see all the little creatures, again, the birds, the little bugs, the lizards, that kind of thing. So I had started kind of playing around in my sketchbook. You're seeing here with the watercolors. I think this is dry enough. I can maybe turn some of the pages. I had been focusing on birds, and then I've gotten kind of into bugs, and I've messed around with landscapes. I will talk a little bit more about some of the watercolor that I'm doing with one of my other watercolor videos. So this is just a quick flip through of some of the things I've messed around with in my sketchbook. Just experimenting with some of the new watercolor products that I have purchased recently and pulling out old watercolor products that I need to use. That's another thing for 2025, using stuff that has been sitting in my supplies. So anyway, the Ready to Nest concept will be a series of paintings and stitched fabric collages. At least that's what I'm imagining. We'll see what the final project is going to be, because sometimes when you're doing a residency, things kind of move around a little bit. But I thought I'd show you my resources. Let me put my sketchbook aside and then show you how I'm working on the three-dimensional aspect of it. So I mentioned before that I had been experimenting with spun cotton. And this is a spun cotton sculpture. It's made from recycled materials. I have like a juice bottle here, and I've used some wire doll armature and some recycled paper and a ball form with tinfoil to kind of start sculpting this figure that I'm going to finish with. And I'm using this homemade glue, which is essentially a water and cornstarch mix that I have made on the stove. And I'm using cotton. I'm still experimenting with cotton materials, spun fibers that I can get as far as roving. I'm using basically whatever cotton I can find close to me. I'm going to have to order in some roving. But for now, I'm using beauty cotton pads, and this is like a medical grade cotton that comes in a roll. And all I am doing with this armature is each day taking these thin layers of the cotton, and I am attaching them to the figure using this glue, building it up. It's similar to paper mache, and this will give me the ability to do more sculpture, is what I'm hoping. I think I talked before in the previous video about my limitations. I can't have a kiln in the apartment, and getting to a kiln is going to be a little bit difficult. So this figure, as I'm applying the layers, I'll apply a few layers at a time, and you can keep working while it's wet, but there comes a point where it feels, it's not really sticky, but it's just a little more difficult for me to handle it, and I want portions of it to dry, so I'll let the layers dry, and then I'll come back and I'll rework in more sections as I go. I'm hoping to eventually have this sculpture holding a small bird on their hands, and I'm sort of envisioning her sitting inside a nest, and that will be sort of like the centerpiece around which the other pieces for the series focuses. I don't know if I'll have any watercolor paintings in the series. Watercolor is something that, while I have worked with the medium, I am not extremely proficient in it. I'm trying to get better with it. So we'll just see the results of what I can produce. And we'll see what 10 pieces I finish with. I may do more than 10 pieces. Our due date is in April. I will link to Anne's website so you can see that. And if you are an artist who wants to participate, you are welcome to join in. But I figured I would share videos over time of the piece as it comes together. And as you can see, the layers with this one, it's going to take a while for it to get where I want it to be. So I don't know how many completed sculptures I'll have. Maybe I'll start some other pieces and work on some simultaneously. I've got to really think about my process, but that's part of doing, the home residency, is thinking about your process, what is working for you, and how you want to do things. So I will set up the series and share some vlogs about that throughout this residency as I document it. I still have a couple of more videos to edit. But before I drop off, I want to show you a couple of the resources that I am using for this residency. Let me switch to the other camera view. I mentioned I'll be giving a series of 3 talks for Surface Design Association about artist residency at home, about how to use your environment and your creative process, and what things you need to do to set up a framework for your course of study. I am changing a little bit about how I've done this residency this time. Before, I was very heavily focused on some of the research, and I think I did not quite have the right balance and did not make as many pieces as I wanted to. So I want to be a little more hands-on this time. I've limited some of my resources and tried to focus more on the hands-on aspect. To that end, I signed up for dimensionality and fiber sculpture with Jacqueline Maligney, I think is how it's pronounced. She focuses a lot on three-dimensional form. We've had our first meetup, and we'll be sharing a lot about our practice and what people use to explore three-dimensionality. Let's see, I think this is Jacqueline's website. She also has some online courses, and depending on timing and budget, I may consider taking one of those. You can see Jacqueline's form has more of these like paper-like vessels. So she focuses on making paper using fibers from roving. She uses like flax roving and silk roving to make these types of paper, which she puts around different forms. I am interested in what she does, and I want to see how I can apply that to my own practice as well. The other resource I will be using as far as meetups is Working with Fabric and Paper with Anna Tisch. I met Anna actually in my remix talk that I gave last year, at the end of last year. And she's also going to be working with dimensionality and fiber art through sculpture, but she's going to be focusing on fabric, paper, stitch work, and things like that. So I think these two work very cohesively together, and that being able to talk with the people in both of these groups will help further my process, help me explore new ways of doing my process, that sort of thing. I specifically joined Surface Design Association because they are textile artists, and there's a lot of mixed media textile artists there. So if you are looking for something like that in your own art practice, look for something to provide a framework, maybe a class in a topic you're interested in. Look at art galleries and museums near you to see if they have some type of exhibition going on with a theme that you're interested in exploring, or artists with specific techniques that they explore, that you can look at experimenting with their process as you incorporate it into your process, if that makes sense. So this Surface Design Association in some ways is helping me provide a framework for continuing how I work and develop my process. Actually, I need to start at the beginning here. This is a book that I got. It is the only book that I have now. If I have other resources, I will add them. I'm going to do a blog post, and I will share a link to that, and I will share a link to some of the other materials that I am using or that I have found, so that you can incorporate your own. I advise you to look at your local library as well and see what books are available to you. But this book is Mixed Media Textile Art in 3 Dimensions by Anne Goddard. She works, as you can see with her work here, with a lot of unique materials, found objects, and other ways using textile art processes with a lot of non-textile materials. So I thought that would be an interesting way to explore how I could incorporate other materials into my artwork. I'm not using a lot of books this time, like I mentioned, but I am using some artists as inspiration. And this artist was mentioned during the meetup we had for three-dimensional sculpture. And I think she will tie in wonderfully with the paper aspect of what I'm looking at as well. Priscilla Robinson uses these folded pieces of papers in three-dimensional manners within her artwork. You can see how she's folded, curved, and layered the paper. And that fascinates me because I could incorporate that in with fabric I believe she uses fabric as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll have to look at it. Anyway, her style of artwork interests me, and I want to see how I can use that. And it looks like this is a good bridge between both of the meetups that I'm looking at. As I find other artists that inspire me through this, I will also add them to the resource blog post that I'm going to be creating. That is all that I have for the moment. I'll be doing updates throughout creating my pieces through a vlog form here on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you are starting an artist home residency and what your theme is in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.